All right, the first couple episodes of the Ahsoka show were a really mixed bag for me. They did some stuff all right, but unfortunately, it was a lot of the shallow stuff. And they did some stuff that I really didn't understand, which was the more substantive stuff. So it's tough to say, but I'm not optimistic about the rest of this season. So the stuff that I liked was the aesthetics. Like Lothal looked like Lothal. All the characters looked how you would expect them to. They had some nice little nods to Rebels, which obviously this is a Rebels sequel if you haven't seen it. And I really liked when they played Sabine's themes, which are called Sabine's Catharsis and Sabine's Dissension. These played during the trials of the Darksaber in the show, which was probably her best episode, and maybe the best episode of the show. Some stuff that I just didn't understand why they did it the way they did it was Zeb is just gone. Don't know if he's going to show up later. They showed Thrawn in the preview. I don't know if that's bait and he's not going to show up till the end of the season. They really took their time with some scenes in a way that made it feel to me like they were just trying to pad the runtime. Because for the streaming services, they don't really count views. They count minutes watched. So they were listed as like 54 minutes and 48 minutes, minus 5 each for credits, which is like an hour and a half if you watch both episodes. And some scenes really dragged out. Like the opening scene with Ahsoka, well, it's the second scene of the show, but it's her opening scene. They're trying to do this cool, like, Indiana Jones puzzle thing, but it's literally just 3 columns that she twists the top of so the lines match up. And it goes on forever. Just completely unnecessary. And I don't know if it's the direction or the acting or what, but a lot of the characters feel like the Rebels characters, except with their soul sucked out. Like Ahsoka is a little bit more stoic in Rebels because she's older and been through a lot, but she still has like a softness to her and still has personality. And Hera was the same thing. She was really stiff. Sabine was alright, but I don't know why that's the direction they chose. The lightsaber fights I thought were pretty bad. Everything felt really slow, and they do this spin move a lot, which I really don't like. Because if you do a spin move in a lightsaber fight to open up, you presumably get cut in half. Like Obi-Wan does a spin move versus Anakin in episode 3, but their swords are attached the whole time, so you can't get to him. Here, they literally run into each other and start with a spin move. It happens multiple times. So the lightsaber fights I thought were pretty weak. I mean, Rosario Dawson is almost 50, but you know, either cast somebody else or let her stunt double do the fighting. All these actors can act in other stuff. So to me, it seems like it's more of a direction issue. I don't really understand why they kind of put Ahsoka and Sabine as having this unresolved issue off screen, where Ahsoka was supposed to be her master and then just ditched her. But they even mentioned in the show that she's not a Force user. Or if she is, it's absolutely minimal. So I don't know why they kind of jammed that in there just to have a lightsaber fight with her. And the way the show started, fighting this Shin Hati chick, who's a Sith apprentice, presumably, it seems like they're going to wrap up the season with her beating her. And to me, it just makes no sense. Because you have a Force user, and then someone who is either really weak in the Force or not a Force user at all. And that was another thing that frustrated me with that fight, was if you have someone who can use the Force and someone who can't, the person who can use the Force should kill him in like 2 seconds. It shouldn't be some drawn out fight. Like if you saw Rebels, Darth Vader fights Kanan and Ezra at one point, and he's so powerful that he overwhelms both of them with pretty much no resistance. And like as soon as they see him, Kanan's like, run. Like we're not going to be able to stop him. I know this chick isn't going to be as powerful as Darth Vader, but if she can use the Force and she's fighting a non-Force user, it's the same thing. And obviously the whole thing with Sabine getting stabbed, they've really undermined lightsaber duels at this point, and you can pretty much put that all on Filoni. It started with Darth Maul, who I like as a character, but if you want to keep him around, don't cut him in half and let him fall to a planet from space. Reva got stabbed directly in the center of the chest by Darth Vader twice and lived. She just kind of walked it off. And now you have Sabine getting stabbed in like the lung, and again she's fine by like the next day. Like you can have people get hurt, but don't have them get hurt in a way where it looks like they should die, and there not be really any consequences. The Grand Inquisitor also got stabbed in the stomach or chest, and people were like, oh, well, he has 2 stomachs. It's not just a matter of having an extra stomach. Like, you're getting a sword jammed through your chest. It's not as simple as just, get up, you'll be all right. Like, you can just stitch it up later. You have organs and things that are important in there. Obviously, blood loss, things like infection. It just makes no sense. And I wish they would stop doing it. But if they were going to do it, at least for Sabine, they try to do it in the side instead of directly in her heart like Reva. But I thought they were going to stick her in a batch tank for a few days or kind of have her out of commission. And they show her at the hospital the next day with like a Band-Aid on, and she's good to go. I liked the stuff with Sabine where they had her kind of missing Ezra. But another choice that I didn't understand was Ezra in his call, or his voice message to her, was like, I loved you like a sister. Like, that seemed like a bit of a retcon to me, because they never became a couple in Rebels. But Ezra was very clearly hitting on her throughout the whole series, and she was annoyed by him at first, but then they grew a lot closer. I mean, you don't have to make them a couple, like, marry them off and let them have kids, but it's okay to have a little bit of romance in Star Wars. It's just a weird thing to me, especially when that's the direction their relationship was going to begin with. To just kind of go back and change that with one line, I didn't really like. And, you know, for a normal audience, I don't know what they're going to think of the characters, because they're all very flat and they're going for stoic, but they're just kind of boring. Sabine, her intro was really cringy, and I know that Clone Wars has a really hardcore fan base, but if you're a Clone Wars fan, I would have to guess that of all the Star Wars fans who've seen the movies, that maybe 1% have watched the Clone Wars series. There's just not a huge crossover when you go from live action to animation, and especially because it's geared toward kids, and even more so those first couple seasons. And then Rebels was even more geared toward kids, and that was on Disney Plus back when cable was the primary watching option. So that one has an even smaller fan base. And I liked Rebels more than most people, but you know, you have to essentially treat these characters as unknown for the normie crowd. I thought that was a really bad way to introduce Sabine, with like this weird high-pitched rock music, and she's unnecessarily using a speeder bike to go under a ship and put herself at risk. Really dumb. They did this thing with multiple puzzles, which I thought was really stupid too. Like, Ahsoka gives Sabine this little orb, which for some reason is in a statue on a world with Force witches, and it knows where Thrawn is. No clue why. No clue why it's there. And Sabine is the one who, like, solves it, but there's not really anything to solve. She literally just twists it a few times, the lines all line up, and it's unlocked. Like, if you're going to do puzzle stuff, there has to be some kind of cleverness required to it. Like with Indiana Jones, when he had to spell out the word from the Bible, and the language was different in Latin versus modern language or whatever. Something that just not anyone can do. And the puzzle with Ahsoka, the puzzle with Sabine, and the Witch of Dathomir, which don't know why they changed her skin color either. I know that they're like grayish in the Clone Wars, and they tried to say, well, she's a descendant of them, so they don't have to make her gray. Just thought it was kind of a weird choice. And none of these were like clever puzzles. And I don't understand why there's a map that goes to Thrawn. Like, they also had a fucking map to Luke Skywalker in the sequel movies. You can do other stuff besides have maps to important people. But whatever. I think it's smart that they're trying to go to the edge of the universe or wild space, so they can kind of detach it from the important stuff during this era, which is obviously supposed to be before A New Hope. So I did like that. I thought Sabine was definitely the strongest part of the show. But even with her, Ahsoka brings her this robot head after the orb gets stolen from her, because Sabine killed one. And Sabine's like, oh, I think I can work with this. Which she's always been good at technical stuff, so fine. She's essentially hacking this robot head to find the location of Thrawn, and she's like, oh, but it might explode and like blow up the whole hospital. And she just does it anyway. Like, shit like that is just completely unnecessary and completely stupid. All you have to do is not have her say that line. There's no reason that she would put everyone in danger to get the information right away. In the second episode, there was a lot of walking around, and they had some Empire people attack them. They introduced what I'm assuming is another Inquisitor who Ahsoka fights. And that fight again just looks super slow. She runs at him with the spin move. They brought Chopper in, which was nice, because Chopper actually unbelievably had the most charisma in the show, and he's a droid. But it seems like they are going to go to wild space this next episode, episode 3, and I just don't know what to expect. I'm hoping they bring Zeb back because I liked him. I can't tell how much they're going to stick with sort of the original trajectory of Rebels, or if it's going to be now you have Ahsoka as Sabine's master, and there's more Inquisitors out there or whatever. But I wouldn't be surprised at all if those are the 2 strongest episodes, and it just slowly goes downhill from here. David Tennant as Hu Yang, which was the friendly droid, was obviously good because he's always good. And that droid also had personality and a good dynamic with Sabine. But yeah, everything about it just feels really soulless, really stiff. And, you know, if you're wanting a show like this to kind of put Star Wars back to an upward trajectory, the characters need to be fun and charismatic and likable, not willing to blow up a hospital to solve a puzzle or whatever other dumb shit. So I don't know. I don't know what the normie crowd thinks, but I don't think this is going to be very good ratings wise. I believe the first episode or the first 2 episodes actually are the same amount of views as Andor, which I think was the lowest rated one. So between The Mandalorian, which I thought was mediocre from the first place, getting worse, Boba Fett looked terrible, I didn't even bother watching it, Obi-Wan was an abomination, and now Ahsoka, it just doesn't look good for Star Wars. And this really feels like kind of the last gasp of the franchise to me, which is a shame because, you know, they finally got like a Rebels sequel on an open-ended story, and there just isn't much to it that I think is going to interest a normal crowd, which is what you need. Maybe it'll get better episode 3, but I'm pretty skeptical. And there's rumors that they're going to bring in the time-traveling wolf, which there was one drawn on the mural that Sabine looked at. Another weird retcon they did that I thought was just really unnecessary was her hair being grown back out, and then she cut it again as like a symbolic Sabine is back type thing. But she always kept her hair short in Rebels anyway. I don't know. It was just a weird choice again. So yeah, this was really, really all over the place for me. I just didn't understand a lot of decisions that you'd think would be pretty straightforward and kind of just knock it out. And I just feel like they didn't do it. And there's plenty of little touches in there that are nice. You know, the aesthetics, Sabine having a bit of an attitude. She kind of felt the same. Her music coming back. The mural that acknowledged Rebels. They brought Ryder Azadi back, which I liked him. But yeah, we'll see. Because from this point forward, I'm assuming we're going to be in wild space and it's going to be all disconnected from the main series. I suspect that it's not going to work for a lot of normal people. Hopefully it'll be good, and I hope they find Ezra soon. That'd be nice if he could actually make an appearance for more than just a hologram. But who knows? All right, that's it for me for this one. I guess I'll go watch episode 3. Thanks. See ya.